Good morning and welcome to the debrief of Liverpool 5, West Ham United 1. This is where we put our subscribers at the centre of the show and put their comments at the bottom of the screen. So if you're watching live, please get your comments into the live chat about yesterday's game. It could be about the starting 11, it could be about certain players and how they've played, it could be about certain things during the game, anything in relation to Liverpool 5, West Ham 1. Get into the live channel. Let's see what our subscribers are saying this morning. And if you're watching it later on in the day, please put your comments down below, and I'll be back later on to see what you're all saying. Simon says there are positives to take into the Brentford game, more than expected. Good attacking threat and energy, and improved performances, but not enough end product. No excusing Alvarez's stupidity. Harrogate says, how do we improve so we stop shipping so many goals? He's fed up of watching us play and see us concede 3, 4, 5 goals. Even his mates have stopped taking them. That's the worst. I think that's the worst. You know, when people who usually take to mock you for being a West Ham fan stop mocking you, I find that the most insulting thing. It's almost, I'd rather they took the piss out of me. I actually feel exactly like what Harrogate Hammer said. I can relate to that. Fox has said Alvarez was slow and clumsy most of the time. Stel, the West Ham Voice YouTube channel, Stel is on the way back home from Liverpool. Let me know what you thought in the live chat, Stel. I just see you just have. Arden says 5-1 last year, 5-1 this year, but with 10 men. Progress. Good morning, Derek. Hope you're all well. Stel goes on to say it was an abject performance last night. It started off brightly, but we fell away very badly. Good morning, Barry. I'm doing all right, Barry, all things considered, in terms of West Ham. I hope you're doing good too. Roy says enough is enough. If we don't get at least 4 points against Brentford and Ipswich, it's time to cut our losses and go and get Graham Potter. Paul says he's usually a very positive West Ham fan, but he's finding it hard enough. He's finding it really hard to find enough positives to outweigh the negatives. I get that. Steve says attitude was better, certainly up until the sending of Derek, saying Lopetegui is an old manager and we've got old tactics, whereas Noel says he thinks we were well in it at 2-1. Barry says we just need to keep the same team that we put out at Chelsea, replace Mavropanos with Todibo. How all our best players are on the bench was a good idea. And Mancunian said at least Todibo managed to avoid the ball when it was hit towards him. And Gary saying 5-1 was a good way to ruin a birthday. I'm assuming your birthday was yesterday, Gary. If not, happy birthday. And lastly, George says no surprise really last night with that starting lineup. I'm going to elaborate on what George has said there. It's something I want to discuss. But if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe and drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up as well. Both things are free and helps this video out. It helps the channel out as well. In regards to that, this starting 11, I was very disappointed last night because I wanted to see his strongest 11. Now, I don't know what that is, right? We don't know what Lopetegui's strongest 11 is yet, and I don't think he knows what it is. But what I do know is before last night, it wouldn't have contained Creswell and Soufal at fullback, and it would have had Mohamed Kudus in there. I'm even going to allow Danny Ings, as in being part of that team, because Antonio's not been great so far. And Fulkrug's unavailable because he's just back from injury. I get why Ings started up front. I get why he decided to give him an opportunity. But there was at least 3 players short of being what I consider to be his strongest 11 at present. And he still doesn't know it. Going into the Brentford game, he still doesn't know it. And if he does, it would likely contain Edson Alvarez, who's unavailable. But when that 11 came out, I was very disheartened because the cups are important to me. The trophies are important. And I can't have a manager at West Ham that doesn't take them seriously. I just can't. Going into the start of every season knowing that when the cup comes around, you're just going to bin it off. That's not for me. We are not Man City or Arsenal who can compete for the Premier League title. We're not even a side that can compete for European spaces at the minute. There was maybe, I think the most optimistic people pre-season thought we could maybe clinch a European spot. And you know what? If we went on to have a really excellent season, I think we could maybe have nicked 6 or 7. But given the start we've had, it's hard to see that anymore. My pre-season sort of prediction, if you like, was 11. I'm sticking to it. I still don't think we're going to get relegated, by the way. Maybe I'm being a bit naive, but I still think we'll just be in the middle of the mid-table somewhere. But what I can't have is going into the season expecting us just to bin off the trophies. And that's the most disappointing thing for me. And it completely overshadows the game itself. We're knocked out. And if we went strongest 11 and got knocked out, I could say at least I know when the FA Cup comes round, he's going to go and try and win those games. But at the minute, when the FA Cup comes around, I'm going to think, we're going to put out our second string team. We're not going to bother with it. It really disappointed me, to be honest with you, because if we don't have the cups, what have we got? European football, that's a bloody ambitious thing for us this season, to aim for European football. That should be the aim, but to then, I feel like he's almost made an expectation to some extent, because binning the cups off to finish 12th is not, there's no justification for that. Binning the cups off and going on and finish 6th, yes, fine. That's the correct decision. We're qualified for European football. I mean, I don't agree with it exactly, but I would understand it. But to finish mid-table, I'm not having that. I was really disappointed when that starting 11 came out. Danny said how he set up with no pace in the full-back positions is beyond him, especially against a side with pacey wingers. Stell said he's hungover, so he's not going to be doing a reflection just yet. Liam said it's funny the amount of Moyes out fans who now realise how good we actually had it. I'm not going to bite too much, Liam, but I think it's possible to have wanted change but not wanted Lopetegui. I think there's too many people think it was either Moyes or Lopetegui, and that was never the case. And to suggest otherwise, I think is incredibly unfair. Noel says, don't think any results so far has been a shock. And he thinks that calling for Lopetegui's sacking is premature. Harrogate said it's a bit early to be trolling in regards to Liam. We conceded the same amount of goals last season, blah, blah, blah. Mancunian says our best performance has been humiliating defeats. Avram 2.0 is good. The funny thing is it's been Pellegrini 2.0, now it's turning into, it's not just Mancunian. I've seen other people refer to it. It's got a vibe of Avram about it. Not got that for me yet, but like I might be a bit naive, but it's not got that vibe. The Pellegrini one I agree with, by the way. Andy said it's going to be a big international break in 2 weeks. Think after that will be his breaking point. Happy Hammer isn't too happy with Lopetegui. Thinks we should get rid of him and get Graham Potter in. Joseph reckons we're doomed unless we swap him for a proper coach. Stevie says the new signings are not it. Duran is a shocking miss by Tim Steiden. Gary's agreeing with myself regarding cups. This season, there's only 2 trophies we could possibly win. Anything but the strongest 11 is out of order. Mike says 14 goals shipped in 7 competitive games. This time last season, it was 9, and 6 of those were against City and Liverpool. Lopetegui was supposed to have watched us a lot. Why then has he not addressed this? The one thing I will say about Lopetegui watching us, as I mentioned it on Patreon, but I appreciate not everybody's on Patreon, and I get why. This isn't a plug for Patreon. It's just to reiterate my point I made on that show yesterday, which was that I've had a bit of a joke about this. Do you know when Lopetegui watched us? I've sat here a little bit tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of pissed off about it, which is he's a bit of a blagger. I don't think he has watched us, because he's either watched us and his conclusion is what in, or he hasn't watched us and he's told a fib. It's one of the two, really. It might be 3, which is he's watched us and liked it and he's continued it. But my point was, it wouldn't have just been West Ham, right? So when he said he's watched West Ham, he probably has. But it's very possible he's also been watching the likes of Crystal Palace, Everton, other teams as well, so that when a Premier League job cropped up, he could go for it. It wouldn't have been just West Ham. And I know the Palace one appeared and they went for Glasgow, but Lopetegui was linked to it. And there were some reports which was, he's not too keen. He's waiting on the West Ham one. But I think the significant context here is when that Crystal Palace job came up, I feel like it was almost obvious that the West Ham job would come up. But also you have to remember, this guy tried to join AC Milan. Lopetegui tried to become the AC Milan manager. he was just prevented because of the petition by the AC Milan fan base. So it wasn't like he was West Ham and only West Ham. He was a week away from signing for an Italian club. So I think he would have been watching other clubs as well as West Ham. Parker said, we're still driving a modest marina in the world of electric cars. It's slow, it's painful, and it's pathetic. Mark says the season could be over before Christmas. Well, we've got the old FA Cup in January. That's when the FA Cup begins, or it has done. Nathan said, Lopetegui hasn't got a Scooby. He should have subbed Alvarez because we all know what he's like. I will say that's something Moyes used to do. Moyes used to take him off before he could get sent off. Stell said he's in agreement, a mid-table finish, but a good cup run would have been acceptable. But the performance last night continues to ask more questions than answers. Hammer89 thinks we should get rid now before it gets worse, whereas Infinitely said, I think our home fixtures have been challenging so far this season. If Lopetegui wasn't under this pressure, then we might have seen a stronger team last night. Brentford and Ipswich are more important now. West Iron reckons Lopetegui fibbed about watching us last season. Mancunian says opposition wingers get to bring the ball down, take their time. Our fullbacks are so narrow to get a head start, and it's utterly ridiculous. Peter says no one expected anything else regards to the result, if they're honest. Liverpool and about 6 other sides have a very good squad, whereas we don't. The thing is, first of all, we should have a good squad. We can't spend 100 million and not have a good squad. That's unacceptable. And I think we've got a decent squad, but it should be Steiden / Lopetegui that thinks we've got a good one. And if they don't feel we've got a good one, that's quite concerning that they've taken a squad that already had millions spent on it, have millions retained in terms of transfer value. So if Steiden would say, well, I needed to spend another 100 million, he could have, not suggesting I want this, he could have sold Jared Bowen and recouped a lot of money and gone and invested that. He could have sold Kudus, possibly sold Alvarez pre-injury or just at the end of the transfer window. I don't know. But there's money within that team that if he wanted to free up funds, he could have done. But I just don't feel like we can spend that much money and say we have a pool. And I appreciate that's your opinion, Peter, which is it's not been good enough. But I'm almost agreeing with you, which is if you feel like that, then there's been a failing somewhere at the club, because we shouldn't be thinking that after spending 100 million. Parker said when we have the ball, we lose it to 2 or 3 players from the opposition. When they have the ball, we don't try to win it back. We lose such a high percentage of second balls and invite trouble. Scott saying, if things don't improve, how long do you think the board will give him, as they're normally very patient? I think the next 2 games are quite crucial, actually. I think I'd imagine all he has to do is get 2 points in the next 2. And to reiterate, because people miss, I'm the one with hearing aids, but I feel like some people don't hear correctly. Like yesterday, I said the performance was better than Chelsea, and people say, I can't believe you thought we played well. Didn't say that though. Then when I asked the person, do you think we played better than Chelsea? Well, yeah, but so you actually agree with me? Brilliant. But anyway, I just reply and say, can't believe you think Sullivan's a good chairman. And they get a bit confused. I don't. I never said that. I know, but I've never said we played well. Anyway, scrap that. 2 points? I don't think 2 points is enough. I think it's enough for the board to retain Lopetegui beyond the international break. Would he get away with getting beat by Brentford and drawn against Ipswich? I think he might. I think it would be a horrible 2 weeks, and it would be the blame game would get ramped right up, and Sullivan would come out, and it'd be. He's not had a 3-game warning yet, has he? That 3-game warning is around the corner. I think that's what would come. My prediction is if we don't pick up at least 1 win in the next 2 games, or we scrape a win against Ipswich, for example, I think during the international break, there will be an article that says Lopetegui has 3 games. That's the Sullivan go-to warning mantra, the 3-game thing. We've not had it yet, though. I don't think we're far away from it. Hammer Right says, what we all know from last night, the next 2 games are massive and we need a win. Where did the midfield against Man City in the second half vanish to? In periods, I felt it was beginning to click. Noel said he was thrilled when we were linked to Amorim, but I suspect we'd probably still have only 4 points and be out of the cup if he'd been appointed. I don't think Lopetegui will turn around or really last season. I can't bear the "we told you" crowd. Depends on what you mean by turn it round. What is turn it round? I guess if he lasts the season, you could argue he has to some extent. I think he will last the season. I think he will do just enough to get by. I think, like I said, my prediction at the minute, and it's just a bit of a whim, is 11th, mid-table, not challenging for European spaces, because there's a lot of low quality. Somebody commented last night, are there really 3 worse teams than us in the Premier League right now? But the answer is yes, or there's at least 3 teams just as bad. Everton, Southampton, Wolves, Ipswich, and Roger said, "Oh, Leicester." I haven't seen enough of Leicester to comment either way. You could maybe even put Brentford into that equation as well. So the answer is yes. There are other teams struggling at the minute as well as West Ham. The next 2 games, I think, are going to be quite definitive in terms of forming an opinion as to what the rest of the season has. We're getting 4 points. I'd imagine we're probably sitting around on 10th or 11th going into the international break. Pick up 2. It's not going to be great, is it? We're going to be hovering around that relegation zone, and it's not a nice feeling or a nice view. Nathan said he turned the TV off at 4, and then it came up that it was 5th goal. This is not acceptable, I think he's trying to say. Double negative. Stell says, do we think there was any mileage in what Guillaume Balaghi said about looking beyond the bench? Could Lopetegui walk rather than being pushed? Yeah, he definitely could. He walked at Wolves, sacked after 14 games at Real Madrid. I would say do the dirty on Spain, but he went behind the Spanish FA's back and negotiated with Real Madrid. I think there's every possibility he walks out. Moyes wouldn't walk out. Lopetegui, 100%. For good and bad. I think let's just say Lopetegui is doing really well and a big club came in for him, won with Champions League football, I think he'd be gone tomorrow. Danny says, I think we all say as West Ham fans, it's the hope that kills you. You struggle and see where the next points are coming from. Peter says our next 5 games are Brentford away, Ipswich at home, Spurs away, Man U at home, and then Forest away. I can't see many points from them with us being poor all over the pitch. No confidence and no team spirit. Dean says our squad has to be better than last season. We didn't sell any of our best players. We added so many good ones. We should not be in this position right now. Cockney Boy says Potter was the realistic and sensible option and he's still available. Alan says my head says it's too early to talk about the Gaffer's future, but just seems like the start of another 2 or 3 years of underwhelming performances and underachieving after a strong window on paper. Stevie says, considering Füllkrug's age and price compared to Duran age and price, the German was the expensive one. Dan says, awful from start to finish. We look poor. No defence and no attacking threat. Dave says, Kudus did not look interested when he came on. He came out at 3-1, so I think the game was over when he came on. Corky says, enjoyed his press conference after the game. He looks committed. Got to give him time. We must now play Todibo, Kilman, and focus on becoming tight at the back. Somerville now must start. Mark said, would you be disappointed if Lopetegui walked away? No. Peter says Ipswich have drawn the last 3 league games, so no easy win like some seem to think. I don't think anyone thinks it will be an easy win. I haven't seen anyone saying we're going to wipe the floor with Ipswich or anything like that. Dan says we're going to get destroyed by Brentford. Should never have got rid of Moyes without a good enough replacement, but the fans forced him out. So took what we could get. That's a completely different topic altogether. It's one I'm willing to have, and I'd almost like to have a little bit because I think there's a lot of this going on at the minute. But what I will say quickly is the club had long enough to find a replacement for David Moyes. It's not like it was a shock appointment, a shock departure by David Moyes. And I think the board could have got Moyes to stay if they wanted him to. I think they could have persuaded him to stay. I can't agree that the fans are to blame for Lopetegui's appointment. And I will just say this before I move on to more comments. Someone suggested that Hammers Chat were the reason that Moyes left, which Personally, I think it's in wild. However, but let's just go with that rule of thumb, right? Hammer's chat's the reason that David Moyes left. So the club would listen to Hammer's chat about Moyes, but not about Lopetegui, not about John Duran, not about putting season ticket prices up for the concessions. And it just feels a little bit daft. But this is where we are now. It's got to the point where it's like, well, you're to blame for this and you're to blame for that. And actually, do you know what? I think the club are responsible for everything. The club are responsible for Moyes going, as well as the fan base, but as a whole. But the club could have kept him if they wanted to. And I think the club are responsible for the appointment of Lopetegui, not the fan base. I think the club are responsible for the signing of Niklas Füllkrug, not the fan base. I just think the club won't listen to us when it comes to season tickets, which is going to gain the club round about £600,000-700,000, right? So the club don't care. Our opinion regarding £600,000, they don't care. To think that they care about the fans' opinions when it comes to something that will cost the club tens of millions of pounds, I'm struggling to believe that. I cannot believe it. There's not even a millimeter of me that believes that whatsoever. It doesn't really add up, to be honest with you. Even if you just step back and look at the bigger picture and try and look at it from that perspective, I still can't get on board with it. Back to the live chat, and Matthew says, stays or goes, doesn't matter. Nothing will change while Sullivan's listening to his agent friends. Chrissy says, everyone's blaming Lopetegui. The players are overrated, and only a few of them are any good. Paul said, I think there may be a deeper issue with the squad. All of the media videos last night, you saw Zuma, Agerd, Cornet, etc., all smiling and laughing together, as well as before and after the game. Harrogate says, everybody keeps talking about Graham Potter. In his eyes, he's just another defensive coach who relied heavily on infrastructure and recruitment. Yeah, Graham Potter isn't somebody I wanted. Andy says, despite the dreadful scoreline, it was a better performance until Alvarez got his stupid red card, but we must put our chances away. Oh, for a good striker. World says, not impressed with the vast majority of our signings. Somerville and Wan-Bissaka look worth it. Kilman is on the fence, and the rest look like poor choices so far. Adam says the fans didn't want Lopetegui either. There was a petition for the club not to sign him, which is factually true. Adam says it doesn't look good if he walks after being so strongly backed in the window, though. I get it's better than being... No, but Lopetegui would say he wasn't backed. At the start, when Lopetegui did his first press conference and there was a question about the transfer window, he said, hey, that's not me. That's this guy. Tim's the one. And at the time, naively, and to be fair, I think maybe both things are true. I thought this was a good thing. This is almost like a structure is now in place where Tim's in charge of transfers, Lopetegui's in charge of training in the first team, etc. And that's, I guess, the modern way of doing things at football clubs now. And I looked at it as a positive thing. But now when you mention about him walking out because he's been backed, he hasn't been backed. I don't think Lopetegui's been backed. Lopetegui would say, I wasn't backed. Tim Steidten was backed. There's a huge difference. Steidten was the one that picked the play. Sullivan himself came out, not directly, but indirectly through people he speaks to. He came out on Monday or Tuesday saying, I picked Somerville. We've even got the chairman picking players, which is nothing new at West Ham. But my point was, Lopetegui's narrative, if he was to walk, was to say, well, I never got to pick the signings. I wanted Max Kilman. Sure, I think Rodriguez, Salah, I think it feels quite obvious that Lopetegui wanted those as well. But the narrative being pushed by Sullivan already, not by Lopetegui, is that Tim Steidten signed off on every single player, bar Somerville. So I think he'd almost be shielded from that in the media. Shaky said we don't need another fractured fan base, but it's starting to be worse than last season. We've now got Lopetegui in and out, and the Moyes should have stayed brigade. We need to stay united. Sullivan is responsible for the mess. He got in the wrong person. He wouldn't sign off on Duran, but he did get Somerville. He doesn't change. Snot reckons everyone's overreacting about everything. It's too early to be wetting the bed like so many people are already doing. Tony says, watching from the beginning, he's back at the start. He's going to take a little while to get his own comment on the screen. Says, now I want to see Soufal and Creswell as fullbacks again. Soufal especially got ruined by Gakpo. I thought Creswell did all right until Salah came on, but up against Chiesa, who granted hasn't been in the best form prior to his arrival at Liverpool. I thought Creswell did well. I thought his set pieces were really good. I've missed Creswell's set pieces. James Gunn says fans are to blame for Sullivan going for Lopetegui out of every single manager in the world. What a stupid opinion that is. They're more blaming us, like the fans, for Moyes going, and as a result, it's the fans' fault that we've got Lopetegui. But it's head against brick wall sometimes. But it goes with like the nature of doing a channel. It's just, I think sometimes things can get. People attribute things to you that you never actually said because it's maybe the general consensus among online media, if you like. And this is what Barry's saying, that, there was other times where maybe more was out. I can only speak for myself. I'm not even speaking for Charlie because he was obviously here last season. Gonzo, Frankie, I'm not speaking for anyone but myself here. Not once did I want Moyes sacked last season. I wanted him to go at the end of the season, but this is part of the whole conversation. I wanted him to go at the end of last season as soon as it was obvious he wasn't going after the Conference League final, if that makes sense. So as soon as Conference League final was done and it came out, Moyes is here, we're not getting rid of him. My opinion was, well, let's just keep him for the whole year. Let's just not get rid of him. Let him go at the end of the season, at the end of his contract, but use that year to get ready for the departure of Moyes. And I don't think the club did that, because I think up until February time, maybe, I think Sullivan was in two minds as to what he was going to do, whether Moyes was going to stay or go. And I don't think they started preparing him for life after Moyes until, I don't know, March or something like that. Just far too late. They should have been doing it from the start of the season. And if come the end of the season, actually Moyes had a good year, we're going to give him a new deal, then that research you've done, yes, it's a waste of time, but at least you were prepared. But it just feels like when the Lopetegui appointment, it just felt like there was just a lack of preparation by West Ham in general for Moyes potentially going at the end of the season. But we'll wait and see. But that's what's got frustrated for myself personally in the last. But like, it goes with the territory doing this. But people saying, "Oh, you wanted Moyes out last season." My response is always, "Well, go find the video that said that," because there's actually the opposite. There's videos saying I don't want him to go because we weren't going to get relegated, and we were on the verge of European football until the latter end of the season. I thought we were, going into January. I'm sure we were sixth in the league in January, so we had a chance of having a good season last year. Just fell apart when it became obvious what was going to happen. Everybody just gave up. But anyway, Dad said calls for Lopetegui's head are a bit premature. He has to be given time to get the squad playing well. We're in transition and with 3 international breaks before December. How can you gain momentum? Ian said after the high we have at the transfer window, what's happened on the pitch has left us all a little bit flat. Hopefully by mid-season we'll have forgotten the less than impressive start. I think if we win the next 2, it'll just chill things out a little bit. Maybe 4 points will just chill it out a little bit. Anything less, though, and I think it's going to be a bit of a difficult 2 weeks being a West Ham fan, I think. Gary says we don't have an identity on how we want to play to guide the director of football. How do we go from Duran to Fulkrug? Makes no sense. Transfer window now looks like a random collection of players. There is an element of that. Dad said if Amarim's available in December, then I can see Lopetegui going and Ruben coming in. But unless anything major happens, West Ham will stick with Lopetegui. I think he'll be here till the end of the season. Unless, like you said, something drastic, which is losing against Brentford and failing to beat Ipswich. Even then, I'm not sure they sack him. It's just, I think he'll get ugly. I don't think there'll be a sack him. I think he'll get really ugly, which is Steiden blaming other people, Sullivan blaming other people. And I think you might see Lopetegui coming out and trying to blame those 2 people as well. I think it's going to get fraction very, very quickly, more than it already is. People speak about the fan base being divided. I think there's almost a divide in the club, which is even unhealthier. Because we're just, at the end of the day, we're just opinions. Fans are just opinions of what's going on. But it's the club. They make the decisions. They influence what happens at the club, and their decisions have consequences, whereas our opinions, not so much. It's just an opinion. Matthew says Sullivan won't cough up. He'd rather take us down than lose face. Yeah. And Stevie says that Thomas Frank, who we're facing this weekend, would be a great West Ham manager. Kevin Ord says only won once at Anfield since the 60s, but thought there was some fight last night. Better lineup might have helped give us a better chance. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm live on Patreon in half an hour. Still not plugged for Patreon. Do the play ratings with Gonzo at 10 o'clock over there. So if you're a Patreon, get logged in for 10 and we'll see you then. Thank you very much for joining me, especially considering it's 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. I'll be back with this show at 9 a.m. on Sunday, dissecting the Brentford game. Thank you to everybody for contributing in the live chat. This is my favourite video to do. I like seeing what people are saying, and we all have different opinions, and I like it. I think different opinions are healthy. They're a good thing as long as it doesn't get personal and there's no slagging each other off. I think it's good. It's healthy. It's when it can get a little bit ugly quickly sometimes, though, and that's why I always feel a little bit uncomfortable that people get offended when other people don't share the same views as those, and that's where I get a little bit, feels a bit unnecessary. But anyway, I like this show because I like seeing what everybody's saying. If we all have different views, I think we played better last night than we did against Chelsea, and I thought the scoreline was harsh. Others not so much, thought we played crap and deserved to get beat 5-1. It's all good. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, whatever you're up to. Loads of content coming up over the next few days with Brentford on Saturday. A big game for Lopetegui. I feel like the pressure on Lopetegui has increased a little bit in regards to the Brentford games, become more important because of the team selection last night. In terms of wanting him gone or not, the vibe I'm getting is it's the same as it was after Chelsea. I don't think too many people have moved from one side to the other based on getting beat by Liverpool at Anfield last night. However, it does feel like the Brentford game, it's very important, not crucial. I think the Ipswich game is crucial. I think the Brentford game is very important. Get a win and we can all just breathe a little bit. However, lose, it's going to be a long week before that Ipswich game. And then I think that becomes crucial for Lopetegui. But thank you very much for joining me. Please do drop a like on the video by clicking thumbs up. It helps the video out. It really helps the channel out. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch up with you later.